Hello everyone, I'm Mark Snodgrass, and today I wanted to talk to you about how to integrate Canva with Domo. Maybe you've created a graphic in Domo, in Canva rather, and you want to make that information dynamically change without having to go into Canva and edit the graphic every time. But you can bring that into Domo and actually using the Domo bricks and filters, you can then dynamically change the information on that. I'm going to show you how to do that today. So let's get started. So the first place we're going to start is in Canva. So here's a sample graphic that I've created. See over here on the left, this is the template from Canva that I started with, and then just change the colors that I'm going to change in information just by creating just little text boxes in here that Canva lets you do that. I won't go through all how to manage Canva. Lots of tutorials out there on doing that. But what you essentially want to do is make it so all the information that you want to have be dynamic, be individual text boxes. So I've got these values that are just kind of sample values right now. These are all text boxes, and then this city name is a text box. So kind of once you've got that all set up and laid out how you want to, one, kind of make note of the font that you ended up using in Canva. And then you're going to delete all of these items in here. So we'll delete this and delete this, this, this. And then we will download it as a PNG as they suggest on here. And I left all those things at the default. So then we just click download, and it will download that graphic for us. Save it where you need to save, and then you've got that available for you. Then your next step is to go into Domo, and I'm going to use a Domo Brick to do this integration. So if you go to the App Store and type in Brick, and the blank brick is the one that we're going to use, and then we'll click Get, and I'm going to create a new dashboard. So it's just on a new page, and we'll bring that in here. So and then you can see if we edit this card, then we get our sample brick, which doesn't have much in it. What it does have is some sample JavaScript in here to interact with the data set. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But then if we click over to the HTML and the CSS, you see those are completely empty in here, and we can write our own HTML and CSS. I'm going to save this for a minute, come back into there and edit it. But if we kind of go out to the main dashboard page, first thing we need to do is bring in our image that we created. And one kind of nifty hack with Domo to be able to bring in an outside image, because Domo doesn't let you refer to any external URL. They kind of have that locked down a bit for security purposes within bricks. But you can take your image, and if you just bring in a text here, so this is essentially a notebook card, and then use the image uploader, then we can select our template member education here. Got that? And then we save it. That is essentially uploaded into Domo's resources. And so then we can right click and inspect, and we'll get the behind the scenes look of what that is. And you see we've got this image tag, and you see it's uploaded into Domo's resources, and it's set that permission in there. So we can take that by choosing copy and copy element. And now we can actually delete this. If we go edit dashboard again, you just needed to temporarily add that into the system, because even though we delete this card here, doesn't actually, that resource still exists. So here's our blank brick card. So now we're going to go into this blank brick and HTML. And the first thing we'll do is add in that image. And you see now we've got that image integrated into our brick. So we've kind of got step one done. We don't have any of our values populated right now, and we don't have this thing formatted very well, but that's kind of the next steps we're going to do. So now we could continue to work on enhancing this piece out. This is going to take a little bit of work, but we're just going to do this step by step. So what I need to do now is bring in kind of placeholders for all those values that I want. And I'm gonna save us the trouble of copying, writing things out by hand. Just to explain this, I've got these span tags. These are HTML. These are basically going to be placeholders for each of those values that I want. That you saw that member name that I had, and then the 4 values that are in each of those boxes. Got that. And if I run this, I'm really not going to see a whole lot difference. But now we're gonna next start to work a little bit with the CSS. One thing we're gonna do is bring in establish a CSS for the background and the body to get some of this shaping going on. So we'll bring in some of that CSS. So we're saying the body, we're gonna set the width and the height at 100%. The margin being 0, font size being large, font family. You saw that Antonio that I had in the Canva site that I was using. I have that here, and that's really not a default font, but I'm going to show you how to bring that in just a minute. Then we've got background, which I labeled as this. I assigned a class and called it background for this image, and gave it a width of 100%, position fixed, and the Z index of a -100. That's important because that Z index makes it sit behind other things that we're going to do, which would be those span tags. So probably if I run, now you see it shaped a little bit differently now because we've got that CSS. Now we can kind of work with it a little bit better and build out some other things. So let's maybe hop over to the JavaScript piece. And the first thing that we're going to do is change our data set. So obviously example sales data is not what we want. That comes default with the brick when you install it. But you can click on this to change that to the data set that you want. So I'm going to change that to member value. And then I'm going to, again, grab some pre-made JavaScript and walk you through some of what we got going on here. So if we copy and paste this, so what I tend to do is list out and create variables for these are just variables that you can create in JavaScript, and this is referring to the ID, the HTML ID. So these span IDs, you see this member name, all those IDs, that makes it accessible in the JavaScript. And we're doing this document get element by ID to be able to reference that and just storing that in a variable called member name. Excuse me, doing another similar thing now with the data fields, and again, kind of setting them as variables to make it easier to reference in the next few steps. So I've got those column names, member name, audit, property survey, member education, LE initiative. So I'm referencing all of those here as values. There's more than one way to do all of this. This is just kind of what I'm comfortable doing. So then in this field section of how Domo wants you to query the data, you list out each of those fields in here that I listed up here. There's comma separated inside these brackets. And then I've got a group by member name. And then now those fields and group by variables then fit into here, and then this statement then runs how Domo has that constructed. There's some documentation on how this all works if you go into the Domo developer site, and you can read more about that. But my JavaScript's not strong, and so I try and do as little as possible and kind of get things formatted easily, so I can just do very little. But here's a reference on how to dig into this a little deeper. So now I'm going to follow, now I'm going to do something with the data. I'm going to now write that data. So I've got this data field. This is pulling from that data set that it queried. And I'm going to write that to the member name, span element, the member ad, the audit, the property survey, all that. The thing I'm doing here is also formatting currency, which I just did a little function. This is very ChatGPT friendly if you want to say, hey, give me a JavaScript function that formats currency, or just generally Google it. It's pretty available. Pull that out there. I wanted no decimal points, so I put 0 and 0 on here. So then I can refer to that function inside here when I'm pulling back those values. So now if we run this, hopefully we get something that resembles something good. Let's see, what else did we forget to do? It looks pretty successful here. So let's save and finish and see if we get anything loading on here. Yep, we did. So they are all showing up here. So that's obviously not where we want, and that's because of our CSS that we haven't fully built out. So now if we go back in here and edit, now we want to build out some more of that CSS. So I've written some classes here as placeholders but I don't have any, those classes are not being referenced, not built out in the CSS. So we need to add those in here. So we'll do that. And this is where it takes a bit of trial and error with your image, depending on what it looks like. So if I hit run, now we've got that looking better here. But these positions are all percentages, and they move around depending on where you need them to be. And you see if I move that data set out of the way, then you see these things move down. It's also what makes this a little bit challenging that this view here isn't what your final view will be. Perhaps if you're really proficient in JavaScript or CSS rather, you could probably do better than I am doing here, but hopefully this will get many of you where you need to be. Going to bring in another piece about the fonts. You see this is not that font that we were seeing in Canva. And if I add this in here, that's should get me my more Antonio font. And how I did that was just saying, hey, what is an equivalent web font for the font Antonio? And Google Fonts was a good reference. You could take that, and I believe I chose get font by getting embed code. Yep. You grab that right here, these 3 lines, and then paste that into your Domo Brick, into the HTML section, and then that then allows you to effectively use that, reference that font in your font family section in the CSS. So since I did in the body, then that applies to all the elements that I'm doing here. So now if we save and finish this, I think we're going to be closer. The other thing we want to do is, because I don't want this quite that size, I'm going to push this over. And I think if I resize this how I want this to be a little better. There we go. Now I've got that laid out the way I want, and I can change my member name by choosing, different city here, you'll see this information changed. Now we've got Blackhawk showing, different values in here showing. So this, I like to use the page filter as a way to do it. And you can select any of these and then that'll change. So that's how you build a Domo Brick that uses a Canva image to get some dynamically changing values out of here. So hope you found that helpful, and always reach out if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.